So someone commented, and it was a very negative comment towards the birthday rule. And I've always looked at the birthday rule as mostly positive. Obviously, we can get into, I think, some of the pros and cons of there being a birthday rule. I think that for the Medicare beneficiary, it's definitely a positive thing for them. I think the best place to really start with this elephant of a conversation would be maybe giving them a rough definition of what the birthday rule is. So, Christian, if you had to explain in your simplest terms possible, what would you tell an agent the birthday rule is?
So I would start off by saying that there is some positives to it, some positive aspects to it, but I will say I think there's plenty of negative to it as well. Um, More or less, right? A birthday rule, by definition, is a program that's implemented on a state by state basis that allows Medicare beneficiaries to change from one Medicare supplement plan or company to another Medicare supplement plan or company with no health questions, no underwriting on the anniversary of their birth month each year. So, and the exact rules and the specifics does vary quite a bit from state to state, since Med Supp is a state regulated insurance program and not really a CMS or federal regulated insurance program. So the rules of how kind of like the specifics of who can do what, the timelines, everything else in between is going to be very different from state to state when it comes to birthday rule. But more or less, like that's what it is. Like if there was a new agent asking what it was, well, that's what it is, little Billy.
Yeah, typically it's like within 30 days. And again, it is specific state by state. That's something super important to stress here is like the rule in California might be different than the rule in Idaho, etc. So you really do need to check with your own state DOI rules or check with the carrier in that state, and they should be able to help you as well. But typically it's within about 30 days before, 30 days after. Sometimes it could be 60 days before, 30 days after, or 30 days before, 60 days after. I've seen it kind of structured several different ways depending on the state. And that's their true birthday window when an application can be submitted and they can take advantage of this in a true value fashion here, because most of the time you have to really dig for this. And this list has expanded dramatically over the past few years. It used to be there was only 2 or 3 birthday states, anniversary rule in Missouri. This has expanded dramatically now over the years. So I'm going to just list off some states that I have on this spreadsheet here that I believe all have. And again, my disclaimer is this changes all the time. This list grows all the time. So check with your state DUI, check with your upline, check with the carriers, and make sure that this is still accurate. But the list of states I have in front of me that either have open enrollment all year long, so there is no health underwriting, seniors can switch at any time. They have an anniversary rule, so around the time that their policy was initially went into effect, typically around their first time they ever got signed up for Medicare, that they have an anniversary rule similar to birthday rule they can get in, or birthday rule like what we just talked about. So here's the list of states. It might surprise you how long this list is, Christian. California, Connecticut, Idaho, Illinois, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Nevada, Oklahoma, Oregon, Missouri, Massachusetts, Maine, New York, Utah, Virginia, Vermont, and Washington. Oh, and I got one more here, Wyoming.
So that means 19 out of our 50 states now are birthday rule states, getting close to the 50% mark, which is wild to me.
Yeah,
Because 5 years ago, for example, there was like 3 to 5 states, I feel like, that did birthday rule.
yeah.
And so it's expanding. It would not surprise me if we move into a place where the majority of states actually end up being birthday rule, maybe 30 out of 50 or something like that. I feel like we're kind of headed to that trajectory. It seems to be something that's catching on more and more in a lot of states. One thing that's very interesting about Med Supp birthday rule is that it's important to understand how your state works with it specifically if you're in a state that does birthday rule Med Supp. But in addition to that, understanding how the commission works in relation
Yes.
to it. So like some states will do it to where they just account for all different types of enrollments and they just have a lower commission to kind of combat it, right? Like Washington's like this. Washington is like 8, 9, 10, 11% Med Supp commissions instead of like your traditional 20, 21, 22, 23, which you see in a lot of states, right? On a street level basis. But we've talked about this before on the show. Med Supp enrollment is always going to fall into one out of 3 buckets. You have your open enrollment, your T65s, new to Medicare, your underwritten, and your guaranteed issue. Birthday rule apps are always going to technically be guaranteed issue business. And in some states, you might have a birthday rule available, but the guaranteed issue commission itself might be 95% less than what the regular commission would be for underwritten or new to Medicare. So like some states, it's going to be the same across the board, like I mentioned, right? Like they just have like a flat commission for any type of enrollment with each, and it's going to be also carrier by carrier based. So understanding this is vital. Utah, for example, has one of the weirdest birthday rules I've ever seen. We did this, implemented it this year. So the person has to change only within the same carrier, but a different plan. So they can't go from example, company 1 to company 2, G to G. They can go from company 1 within the same company 1, F to G or G to N or something like that. But that is considered guaranteed issue commission, which ends up typically being, depending on the carrier, 2% commission, 3% commission. Some carriers just pay a one-time commission of like $50 and then you're done. Thanks for your service.
Thank you for
and they also don't change agent of record. So it's not, if it's not your existing client already, you just did that for nothing. The old agent still remains. If there was even an old agent, and if there wasn't an old agent, it's still a house policy. It has to be your own client already.
Yeah, I wish there was a simpler way that we could have, a one size fits all for you guys on this, where we could be like, hey, the birthday rule is exactly this. It's in exactly these states. These carriers will pay, these carriers won't, but it's very mixed bag depending on the state. Some states, like Christian mentioned, you might find that 95% of carriers will pay you almost nothing, but there might be 1 or 2 carriers that will actually pay you full comp. So what you really have to do if you are trying to sell more Medicare Supplement and you want to take advantage of birthday rule or open enrollment or anniversary rule for that state, you really need to talk to the carrier. Talk to the carrier and figure out, hey, this is what I'm looking at doing. Is this something you guys would pay on? What does the comp look like on this? And see if you can get a comp schedule from the carrier, from your upline, that will help give you an idea of what you can expect. Because obviously, again, the whole point of what we're trying to accomplish here is we want to make sure you guys get paid, right? We don't want to write more business that doesn't get us paid as agents, right? So that would really defeat the purpose. But this is also an ever-changing topic. Just like we talked about a moment ago, with this list being at almost half the US now. I bet if we did this podcast again in a year or two, it'd probably grow even more. I think what we're seeing happen is the Medicare beneficiaries are getting so fed up with these increased premiums. Maybe we can get into some of the downside now on the birthday rules. And I'll start with kind of my own personal experience being here in Oregon, which has had the birthday rule for a really long time. When the birthday rule went into effect initially, we saw premiums go up 20, 30, 40% across the board. It was a massive, massive hike by the carriers. And some of you might be like, well, why did that happen? Well, it's the correlation of having to take on this business at the carrier level, where some of these people might be at a significantly increased cost of claims, right? Someone who's really sick, they could be on dialysis, right? I mean, they could be at end of life, needing all sorts of different type of coverage and care. And now the carrier has to accept them based on the rules of birthday rule. So, that's obviously one downside. What's another downside from birthday rule that you think we can get into?
Well, kind of piggybacking on what you said, right? Like the rate increases on existing members, but then you'll also see most of the time in birthday rule states, new rates for new members start to go up. So like some of these states, like the cheapest Med Supp you can get, like a G, for example, is like 200 a month, or 250 a month, or some states even 300 a month. So like it makes it it makes the bar a little bit tougher to reach for the average Medicare beneficiary if their starting off premium at 65 is that much greater. It just inflates the price of Med Supp products across the board, right? For new members, for old members, and everything else in between, which I would say the biggest argument for it based on that is, I think it makes Med Supp a less attractive product in the grand scheme of things, um, and especially if you're in an area that's got decent Medicare Advantage options, I don't know. I just feel like it overall might hurt the Med Supp product and for new Medicare beneficiaries. That would be the argument I would say for the negative of it. It's just those inflated prices for everyone.
I think part of the problem too is there's a lot of guesswork that comes at the carrier level when these types of rules first go into effect, because they don't know. They don't know what to expect, right? I mean, an actuary's goal is really to try to guess what the increased, cost is going to look like. So I feel like in Oregon and some of these other states where they've had the birthday rule for a while, they have a lot of data now of what to expect. So I think that's kind of changed the game a little bit from the premium point of view. Whereas with this massive increase across the board, anytime a state rolls out something new, the carrier is going to be like, "Mer?" And just be like, let's just jump the premiums up to this number. This should protect us. And they're guessing. They're legitimately guessing. They don't know. They don't know exactly what to expect. So that's, I in a perfect world, I'd like to see it get to the point where there's stability with this, where the premiums are increasing at a reasonable rate, right? Obviously, the premiums have to go up because it has to keep up with inflation and cost of healthcare. So premiums have to go up. And at the same time, agents getting comped to be able to utilize this, because it sucks for a senior that they get locked into a plan, the premium goes through the roof, and then they can't switch to a different Med Supp plan. And maybe they're in an area like where I'm at, where there is only Med Supps, so they can't even get on an Advantage plan. So from the beneficiary's point of view, I understand why it's becoming the trend, right? Because at the state DOI level, they're looking at it like, well, we really want to help the beneficiaries, right? We want to help them get into the coverage that they need at a price that's more reasonable.
Yeah. The pros of it for sure is the client has the ability to change for sure. Like they're not locked into a premium that continuously goes up and they're too sick to be able to change potentially. Maybe that is their best option. That's definitely going to be the positive side of guaranteed issue business. And the other positive side of it is, if you do find a situation where there's a carrier that pays decent commission, you're in a birthday rule area, you can write a lot of business on that you wouldn't be able to normally write because maybe the person wouldn't be able to pass underwriting potentially.
Yes.
So
yes.
There's a lot of positives that come with it, right? And like it might become one of those things where you have to shop those rates for those beneficiaries a little bit more often than you would another place. But, you can acquire a lot of business by doing that. And it does give the client more options. So there's a lot of good, I think, overall. And I think you touched on something very accurate. Like states that have had birthday rule for a long time, like Oregon, probably even California,
Yep.
they will oftentimes stabilize out, and it's a little bit more predictable. It's not as erratic on a normal year on the rate increases. I would probably think that the rate increases would be greater than a non-birthday rule state just in general, but I don't think you're going to see 20, 30, 40% a year. Once the birthday rule has been in there for 3, 4, 5 years or longer, it'll probably stabilize out. And yeah, so I think that's a great point, and it can really provide a nice opportunity to write business. Like, let's say you just struggle immensely with underwriting and health questions, and you're just like, you're nervous about it. Like, you're talking to Mrs. Jones, and you're going through the underwriting questions, and this is you. You're convulsing. You're having a stroke. Headphones are falling off. That's how nervous I am. And this is a situation where, like, if you were in a birthday rule state, you could primarily focus on open enrollment, new to Medicare, Med Supp business, and birthday rule, and that's it. You, if you wanted to, could never have to touch a Med Supp underwritten policy if you focused on targeting those two things. So, you wouldn't have to be, or anything like that.